Oh man, oh man, we're live on the internet. That's right, we're back. We're back and we're better than ever. Wait, Julia, you look different. You look like a robot. What's going on? Also, we have Alexis here. Hi, Alexis.
Hi.
So,
Hi, I'm Julia.
Julia, you and your terrible, terrible Taylor Swift opinions. So that is
I
right.
am curious to find out what her rankings were.
They're trash. Absolute trash. I'm going to trash on them, and we're going to finally have someone who is a fan of Taylor Swift on this panel. So, welcome, Swifties, to the Greg Troyan YouTube channel. We have been going through the entire Taylor Swift catalog, album by album, and ranking all of the songs on them from least best to best, because there's not necessarily a bad song on any of the albums. Except for this one, because there's one that's hot garbage, which we'll get to in a little bit. But before we do, I want to introduce the panelists who are voting and ranking these songs. Julia has been on our previous episode. She is not here, but she sent an absentee ballot, and we accept absentee ballots here because we believe in democracy. Do not burn the polling boxes, please. Nope, nope. We count all the votes. My name's Greg. I'm the guy. This is my channel. You probably know who I am at this point. I like Taylor Swift. I like her music. Mike Walsh is a robot today because his camera is not working. Hi, Mike Walsh.
What's going on?
We've got Steven Smith in the other lower corner. Boys at the bottom and at the top with me. Hi, Steve.
Hello.
Oh, we've got two concurrent viewers, and up top, longtime viewer, first time caller, Alexis. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. An actual Swifty has joined us to correct our wrong opinions.
I don't know, mine might be wrong according to some people, but in my heart, it's right.
Okay, so all right, I have the correct opinions. The rest of you are wrong. Thank you for joining me as we talk about my correct opinions, and I correct you on your incorrect ones. So typically at the start of these episodes, we go around the panel, talk about our history with Taylor Swift, and talk about our history with this album in particular. And Alexis, since it's your first time on the program, how about we start with you? Talk about your history with Taylor Swift and this album in particular.
Okay, so I've been a Taylor Swift fan since as long as I can remember. So I was like 5 whenever debut came out, so I was pretty young. I didn't listen to that one too much because I didn't really know who Taylor Swift was then. But whenever Fearless came out is when I really started listening to her, and that was like my first big album of hers. And then same thing, Speak Now and like Red was also like a big thing for me. Mostly Speak Now and Red because that's the ones I remember the most. And with this album particularly, it was like on repeat like every single day. I had like a CD player in my room. Actually, it was like a big stereo thing. And I would just play it at the loudest volume and sing all the songs.
So,
That's pretty
bona
much
fide
it.
Swifty. Me, I think so. This album was what? 20 was this like 2012? I think this album was. Yeah,
2012,
it was
yeah.
2012.
The deluxe edition was 2012. I don't know when
No,
the
the original
original
was
edition was.
2012 because I remember I this was a new release when I was in Nashville, and I remember Taylor Swift had a deal with Walgreens where you'd see like these big displays of red all the Walgreens, and I just thought to myself, man, it's just really weird how economics works and how this pop country singer has this deal with this pharmacy, and so there's cardboard cutouts of this person at pharmacies all across the nation, and like a pharmacy is where you like go to like get your prescription filled, but then also they sell cigarettes at pharmacies. Pharmacies are just weird in general. So but
It's where
this
you go to buy the Tylenol to deal with the headache from all the Taylor Swift.
eh, but no, I liked this album. I had some friends who were Swifties who were into it, and we talked about how like Taylor Swift had gone full pop at this point, what we considered full pop with I Knew You Were Trouble. Just we thought like, oh yes, country well known for its dubstep affectations. Um and so it was kind of like shocking how much of a popular direction this album was, which is funny because when 1989 came out, we were thinking like, will she make the transition okay? Are people going to accept her as a pop artist after freaking this album, which is hilarious in retrospect. Um But I liked it a lot at the time. I was 22 when 22 came out, and as people who, watch the show know, at heart, I'm a basic white girl. And so I was all about 22, like, oh man, I'm 22, I'm jamming to this. So, um, yeah, I liked this album when it came out. I like it now. It kind of went down in the rankings of Taylor Swift albums for me as I enjoyed other albums, but really focusing on it for the last like month and a half, it's risen back up and I've really appreciated all this album has to offer. So, yeah, definitely a fan of this one. And actually this might have been yeah, so this would have been the era of like Greg just meeting Steve at an open mic. Because I met you either late 2012 or early 2013. So the beginnings of
I
our
think it was late 2012.
yeah, late 2012. Because then you started to play shows with us in like 2013. But still, like we met in the Red era, dude.
I suppose that is technically true.
Speaking of things that are technically correct,
I don't
Steve,
know that really affects our friendship, but like
Real-
because I wasn't listening to Red,
transition. What were you
I
doing?
might as well use that as the transition. That yeah. So as I've said in the earlier albums, was not in Taylor Swift's target demographic at all, being the slightly older than her dude who was into rock music. I was far outside of her demo, but by the time Red came out, A, she was going for more pop, so her demo had broadened. B, I was living in Nashville, and C, I was working with country artists in my professional career. So I was starting to touch upon being in her demographic, but I still had zero interest in it, in her music. So I recognized that she was becoming more of a cultural force, and I, knew some of these songs from the memes, but I had not honestly listened to pretty much any of them all the way through until prepping for this podcast. I think I'd in fact never listened to any of these songs all the way through prior to this podcast. The most I knew was the Goat remix of I Knew You Were Trouble. And I didn't even realize it was dubstep, because the most dubsteppy affectations of it were replaced with goats. So that's fun. Yeah. So then I listened to it this week. That's my exposure to Red.
And Robot Mike, how about you? Obviously you murdered Real Mike to be here, but what was Real Mike's experience with Red and Taylor Swift up to this point?
Oh yeah, since I am Robot Mike and had killed Real Mike, I have uploaded all of his brain memory into my own database so I can explain verbatim what his thoughts are regarding Taylor Swift. So yeah, I already knew obviously Taylor Swift, the big hits from like the first couple albums, and then I don't know, I didn't really remember Speak Now happening all that much, but I definitely was more aware of I Knew You Were Trouble and We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together. And I just remember those songs just being big at the time. Other than that, Red wasn't really on my radar. I just knew Taylor Swift as like a very big artist at that point. And so yeah, that's pretty much my only recollection of Red at the time.
All right, well, let's get into this ranking that we have here. So at the bottom of the list, because we factored in Julia's votes, so this song should not have ranked at the bottom, even though I ranked it second from the bottom. There's another song that is much, much worse than this, a chasm worse than this. But that's just the way it works with democracy. You don't get what you want. Anyway, joke about the Green Party here. Okay, so we've got The Moment I Knew as the worst song on this album. I mean, I ranked it. We include the 3 bonus tracks. We're going to do the vault tracks next episode, and Ronan, which I'm sure these heartless bastards will rank like bottom because it's a slow ballad. But yeah, The Moment I Knew, I think this song is the unfortunate stereotype of what people think Taylor Swift music is, which is this really overwrought dramatic ballad about like a minor thing in a relationship. We're just like, you didn't show up for my birthday party, and I was dressed all pretty, and you ruined it by not being there. And it's just so over the top and dramatic, like it's the biggest thing ever, and just like, maybe like he couldn't catch a flight, or like stuck in traffic, or more likely like, okay, the guy was like a douchebag and he should have been with somebody better anyway. Either way, it's like the amount of drama that the song has versus the subject matter, it's just so overwrought and over the top that it comes off as silly, even though like musically it's fine. But I think it's just like so bombastic given the subject matter that it has it it gives off like the complainy frilly princess energy that a lot of people complain Taylor Swift has, and I think she does have more depth as a songwriter. And so I think this one being cut from the album and as a bonus track makes sense. But by that same token, like, despite it playing into negative stereotypes about her as a songwriter, it's still not a bad song. It's just a little bit silly how dramatic it is given what the song is about. And so it ranks second from the bottom for me. So I still actually kind of like it, but it's one of the weaker ones here. Let's see, who else ranked it second from the bottom? Alexis, you also ranked it second from the bottom. What do you think about this one?
Yeah. I mean, basically what you said. It's just kind of a little bit boring, kind of too dramatic, but I mean, it's okay. I don't like hate it. Sometimes I like it, but sometimes I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want to sit here and listen to this whole song. I mean, I think it's about Jake Gyllenhaal though, so we all know how that went. He just kind of wasn't a good person.
Great actor,
He
bad
is the kind
person.
of guy that wouldn't show up to your birthday, which is kind of disappointing. And it was also like, I think it was like her 21st birthday, so that's like a big birthday to like not show up for, I guess. So it was like an important time in her life, and just like the person that was supposed to be there for you wasn't there. So it is kind of disappointing. So I get where she's coming from, but yeah, I don't think we needed like a whole song about it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I just wonder like what his excuse was. Just like I just didn't feel like it. Like it was a couple blocks away, but I just like wanted to stay at home and play Xbox rather than show up for your 21st birthday. Just rude.
I
Um,
mean, maybe.
like it better have been like, no, I was stuck in LA, or like I was, the film shoot went late kind of deal, in which case like you're kind of stuck there. But I don't know. I don't know. Mike, you gave this 3 points. Robot Mike, what did Mike think of this one?
Yeah, so I had it third from the bottom, so pretty much same spot as you guys. And my actual notes were I can't even think of anything to say. Mediocre, and I didn't need another one of these songs on this album. I don't even hate it. It just, as I've said in all the other previous podcasts, when you get to like the 25th song like this on a Taylor Swift album, and I like her, I do think she's talented, but since I'm not like a huge fan, I just can't do like 37 songs like this like in 1 hour, like so.
I'm so
I just
excited for
tune
Tortured
out.
Poets. I'm so excited for Tortured Poets. More like Tortured
So
Michael.
I mean, that's all it was. Yeah, and I mean, and as you know, if you've already read my notes, I honestly didn't even realize it until I had already ranked the songs. My bottom three songs, they're all like about 5 minutes, and I just think that like drags out the boringness of them. So this is one of those three. You notice a mediocre song when it goes on longer than it should, and so that was my take on it. If she released it as a single one day or something, I might be like, oh, that's a fine song. But in context of an album, yeah, it was at the near the end, just didn't need it.
Steve, you gave this 8 points. You liked this the best out of all of us. Julia gave it 6. You liked it more than everybody else. I mean, I get it. You like Jim Steinman. You like overwrought dramatic piano music. So, but this isn't necessarily
I didn't
good
even
overwrought.
think of this song as overwrought and dramatic. I think if I had clocked it as overwrought and dramatic, I might have liked it better. But like, it's Taylor Swift overwrought dramatic, where she's like, "Oh, my 21st birthday party was the worst thing that ever happened to me." She said that in an interview. That like, I'm looking at the genius of it right now, and the moment I knew is a song about my 21st birthday party, which was the worst experience ever. If the worst experience of your life is your boyfriend not coming to your 21st birthday party, you are kind of a boring person.
which is a thing. This is the thing. This is a overwrought dramatic song for a boring person. So it's somewhere in the middle because it's not terrible. It's innocuous. I have nothing great to say about it, nothing terrible to say about it.
Although I will say, as a partial possible defense, worst day ever is just like a thing that like girls say. They don't necessarily mean this is the actual worst moment of my life. When they say it was like the worst day ever, it could have been used in that context.
Worst experience ever.
Worst experience ever. Still works.
It wasn't even her worst day. It was the worst ever thing that happened to her.
Clearly, she's never been to a snake vomit show.
Snake vomit, the worst thing that's ever happened to you.
Add to the chat. So, next up is the only song on this album that I skip. Where I listen to it enough times to like know how it goes, but then every time when listening to this album, I skip it because I hate it, because it's awful. Every other album we've done on this podcast, at least the Taylor Swift albums, I haven't skipped a song. I like will let it go through, even if it's a song I'm not super hot about. This is a song I dislike enough where the skip button is utilized. And that's up on the list. Ranking. So the last place song had 21 points. This has 37 points because Julia ranked this as second best and gave it 18 points, elevating it up like one of my bullshit rankings of like the Peter Criss 78 album is great. Let's elevate it up a bunch of spots solely because of Greg's vote. But The Last Time is next on the list. So what I told Julia about this song, because we were chatting about it, she can't be here today, but I was like, Julia, I thought you weren't being a basic white girl anymore and had better taste. And she's like, I do. I like the Snow Patrol guy. Like, no, like, just because like a hot British guy is singing boring music doesn't mean it still isn't boring music. It's just like, damn it, I can't help that he's hot and British. The song sucks. It's bad. It's boring. This is a remarkably boring ballad with remarkably boring lyrics, with remarkably boring vocals. I hate everything about this. Thumbs down, sucks, stinks, don't like it. The fact that it isn't at the bottom infuriates me solely because of Julia. Yeah, it's trash. Mike, you ranked it second from the bottom. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, it is the second from the bottom song, so it's in the correct spot. Yeah, I saw the name Gary Lightbody and I was just like, Gordon Lightfoot? What? I didn't recognize his name. And then I looked up who he was. I did recognize the name Snow Patrol, but I'm not really familiar with them. His singing didn't really do anything for me. Not that I thought he was terrible, but he wasn't really adding anything to me to the song to me. Taylor Swift wasn't really making it a very great song for me. I guess I mostly agree with you that it's nothing special. Although I did make a comment. I don't hate it, but and that was all I had to say about it. So I guess you actually hate it. I just found it to be very boring. Again, another like almost 5-minute song that just goes on way too long without really doing anything special. Julia is indeed insane. How high did she put this?
Second from the top.
Oh, that's ridiculous. That's hot garbage. Yeah, then no. If she had put it at like even in dead middle, maybe, but second from the top, she just purposely tanked this rank, or not tanked because it still ended up in the correct spot, but she tried to tank this ranking just to piss you off. I'm convinced of that.
Yeah, no, we had a very long chat. It's too bad she's not in the episode because I was like fierce, like how is the second from the top? The song is so. Like, again, like what you said, even if middle, I could accept middle, like, well, maybe it's a ballad that speaks to you, but, like, the second best song on this album, it's insanity. Let's see. Alexis, you gave this 6 points. What are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, I agree. It's pretty boring. It's really long for no reason, honestly. And, yeah, I don't really like the guy that's singing in it. I think Taylor's vocals are fine. I didn't have a problem with her. Like, some parts I think are better, like, her singing in it than, like, other parts. Some of it's boring. I did have like a moment with the song where I did really love it at one point, and then like when I went back and listened to it, I was like, no, it's actually not that great anymore.
And Steve, you gave this the highest non-Julia points, 10 whole points for this piece of trash.
Yep. Well, Greg, I feel the need to point out your math being incorrect in that if you had excluded Julia's scores, the Moment I Knew still would have been in last place. The only way for her to put this one also in last place would be for her to have put it third from the bottom or worse. But anyway, yeah, I said it sounds like that Snow Patrol song, just slightly different, and that's fine. It's fine. It's not my jam, but some people like that Snow Patrol song, and I could see wanting to hear more songs that sound like that. Possibly there's an overlap between those people and Taylor Swift fans, I guess.
I have listened to some Taylor Swift fan podcasts, and generally what I've heard about this song is that people are upset about this song because, like, I didn't come here to hear the fucking Snow Patrol guy. I came here to hear Taylor Swift. Why is this guy singing first? Get rid of this. I want to hear her first. But also, like, I don't
It's
know.
a shame we never got the rest of the way through the Smashing Pumpkins discography when we could have gotten to Atom, and I would have ranked Hooray at the very top because it's the one song that sounds different.
Yeah, we just the problem is everybody else got bored doing the Smashing Pumpkins albums, including you.
Yeah, that triple album was going to be rough. Sear was going to be rough. I don't think I've ever listened to that album all the way through because it's so bad.
Right. Like, I would have done it if not. The thing is, there needs to be at least one panelist who has, like, enthusiasm for the entire discography. And not even you had that, and you were the one who suggested it. So that's why, like, when we got to Oceania, I'm just like, does anybody care anymore? No? Okay. Well, hey, next up on the list, we've got Sad, Beautiful, Tragic, which Mike ranked as the worst song on the album, and Alexis ranked as the best song on the album.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
So we've got some differences here. Steve gave it 13 points. I gave it 4 points. Julie gave it 3 points. I think I'm going to save you two for last because I think that's going to be the interesting back and forth. So Steve and I will go first. I'll go, then Steve will go. So I think it's a ballad that doesn't necessarily have a super strong melody, but I think the atmosphere of the piece really, really works. And in general, I tend to be like, no, must have good melody, otherwise song sucks. But I think this one builds up such a atmosphere that, like, it really, really works for what it's trying to do. And it's a really enjoyable, like, quiet little piece where I like it a lot. So even though I gave it 4 points, like, this is in everything else is like, no, this is good territory. So, and I think a song called Sad, Beautiful, Tragic by Taylor Swift is like one of the most Taylor Swift song titles you can possibly imagine. So, yeah, I like this one. Steve, you gave it 13 points.
Yeah, so normally when I can pick out something that was specifically Chathan Knappman on a song, I don't like it. And this song, I put somewhere in the mid. I described it as a snooze fest, but not an aggressively bad one. But the fact that it's just Knappman going nuts on a classical guitar throughout the entire song for no real reason is kind of amusing. It's less terrible than his stack of fake Michael Anthony vocals. It's just kind of fun that he's like, all right, he's trying to shred on a nylon string, go off Queen, I guess.
All right, Alexis, do you know who Michael Anthony is?
No.
We got the kids on the podcast now. Oh, all
Kids
the old
on the
people.
lawn.
Michael Anthony is a musician that Billie Eilish doesn't know.
Well, then I wouldn't know. I know who Billie Eilish is.
See, that's a joke because when she was on Jimmy Kimmel, she was asked if she knew who Van Halen was, and she doesn't, or didn't. So Van Halen was a band from the 70s and 80s that was really popular. and Michael Anthony was the bassist, and he had very big backing vocals. That was a huge part of the band's sound. All right, and now the battle between best song on the album and worst song on the album between Mike and Alexis. Um, Alexis, why don't you say why it's the best song on the album, and then Mike refute, and then you two can go back and forth.
I don't know how to explain it. It's just like out of all of Taylor's songs, this one sticks out to me so much musically. I don't know why, but I love the music in it. It is kind of slow. I will say that it's kind of slow, but I just love it. I'm just a girl, and I just love it. I just think it's great. I think it's great lyrically. I think it's great musically. I don't have a bad thing to say about it. I used to not love this song that much. But then, like, as I listened to the album more, it just really grew on me and became, like, my favorite song on the album. I can understand why people don't like it, though. It is kind of boring. But I just don't agree.
All right, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, you're not going to get the heated battle you were hoping for, and you can back me up on this because I sent you my notes ahead of time, but I just said maybe it would have reached me if I was the target audience or if I heard it at the right time and place, but I just found it boring. And so, yeah, I mean, I think Alexis was much more the target audience, and, you know, she was a lot younger when she heard this. It was like, it was more for her, and I'm happy that she enjoys it so much. I don't hate it with a passion. It just, yeah, just the slowest, kind of lacking a melody. And you guys know me, I typically dig more upbeat, more melodic. So it just wasn't for me. I'm glad it was for Alexis, and I do not mean that sarcastically.
Aw, well, that's terrible hashtag content. There's no blood sport here, so we'll just move on to the next song. All right, so this next song I gave 17 points to, and it is generally considered to be one of the best songs in the catalog. Swifties love this one. The 10-minute version of it became a #1 hit when it was re-released. And everyone on this panel, which, by the way, we will rank the 10-minute version when we do the vault tracks, but shockingly, All Too Well, the track 5 in this album, near the bottom of this list, fourth from the bottom. I'm shocked. Well, like, part of me is shocked, part of me is not shocked, because, like, oh, it's a ballad, it sucks, we're a bunch of guys, and Julia, ha ha ha. But for me, I thought, like, okay, this is, like, one of her ballads that is so good that it's undeniable. In the same way that, like, the Kiss song Beth is so good, it's undeniable. Just like, yeah, no, it's a ballad, but it's a really good ballad, you guys. And apparently it is deniable in this group. I am shocked. I think lyrically, this is one of her best lyrical pieces. I think it's very catchy. I think it's powerful. It has the right dynamic shifts that it needs. It's catchy. It shows her strength as a songwriter. It's her without necessarily like the overly poppy choices of like the big singles on the album, but I think it's like very competitive with them in a different way. Where I can see why a lot of Swifties gravitated towards this being their favorite song on the album, being the one they championed over the 3 big singles. And I thought, like, no, this song is so good, like, even the cynics are going to rank it somewhat high. And then everyone's like, nope, trash, ballad, it sucks. I hard disagree. This is where, like, Greg, being a basic white girl, being a normie, comes in. The song that, like, the Swifties love, like, this is their fave. I'm like, yeah, I'm with you. I love this one, Swifties. Yeah, I gave this 17 points, so pretty near the top. And I'm shocked. So, Steve, you ranked it second from the bottom. Why is this a slow, boring ballad?
I sure did. Well, I mean, it's got all the things that I don't like to hear in a Taylor Swift song. It's a slow, boring ballad. There's a big stack of Natty Chap's vocals that which boy is he pretending to be in this one?
Jake Gyllenhaal, probably.
Jake Gyllenhaal, who is a better actor than Chapman is, so like it just ends up being real weird that he's trying to pretend to be him. Yeah, just
imagine Gay Mysterio is singing the
nothing-
backing vocals to this.
that
I just
would
want to
be
give a quick nod to Vic, who is not here with us today. But if this song is about Jake Gyllenhaal, then according to Vic, that means Jake Gyllenhaal is doing the backing vocals on it.
right. That is his rule. But yeah, like no, not for me. Probably if this were on the first album, I would not have ranked it so terribly. But at this point in the discography, I'm like, nope, no more of these. I'm tired of it.
Bad news, bud. They're called track 5.
Oh
no!
Wait. No, I'm gonna hold it. We're gonna stay PG-13.
Oh,
for
thank
now.
you. Oh yeah, without Julia, this full episode might be monetized. So Mikey gave this 6 points. So the track 5s are still not doing it for you.
Okay, I have not kept track of that. Am I historically ranking those lower than I should be?
They're historically ranking lower from all the panelists, where among Swifties
Okay,
they're
yeah.
considered to be like highlights and gems of the album.
Right, I know you've mentioned that, yeah. So yeah, I mean, 6 from the bottom, for me, it's getting into that, it's kind of low middle, but it was definitely in that first, in the section where I'm like, okay with them, just not loving them. I even mentioned in my notes, like, points for how the intensity picks up. So I do like that, like you said, the dynamics. So in a way, I'm like, okay, I can see how they could make an extended version of that. But, I mean, 10 minutes sounds insane. If I remember correctly, it's around 5.5. If you told me they added another minute, maybe even pushed it to 7, I could maybe understand that. Oh, wow, they really jammed out at the end there or something. But I have no clue how this becomes a 10-minute song.
Well, let me say
unless
this
there's
as
like
a counter.
giant...
Think about-
Unless you're talking, it's like a music video where there's 2 minutes of talking or something. But
you've listened to Jim Steinman, and somehow they cut the 12-minute "I Would Do Anything for Love" into like a 5.5-minute radio edit.
yeah, I mean, I am shocked that you would compare this to "I Would Do Anything for Love," which I know you're not. But
But in terms of like
yeah,
how you can make a song 10 minutes, like you listen to
Right.
enough Jim Steinman, like come on, you know this overwrought piano ballad can have an extra 5 minutes.
I'm curious, and like I clearly didn't hate the song enough where I'm like dreading hearing that. I'm actually intrigued. Who knows? Like that might somehow do it for me, where I'm like, this is amazing. Because I will give credit to this song. I think I had it even lower, and then it gained. And I'm like, okay, it does something, and I respected that at least. But kind of going back to Steve's point, like, we're on album 4 now, and I feel like I'm on album 4 and I've already heard like 213 Taylor Swift ballads, and it's just a lot. It's just so many. Like, I just if we were doing like half albums, I think I could like digest it all better. But I have a bad habit of putting off my ranking far too long, and then I listen to like 19 ballads in a row, and I'm like, just so many at once, and I'm not even the target audience for this anyway, and so I'm
classic
trying to
Steel
respect
Panther
it and
song,
appreciate
19
it, but it's
ballads
just
in a
so
row.
much. What'd you say?
I said the classic Steel Panther song, 19 ballads in a row.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
So Alexis, you and Julia both gave this 9 points. So, like, lower mid for the album. Are you a fake Swiftie?
See, look, I had told you this before. I'm not the biggest fan of All Too Low. It just doesn't do it for me. The regular version. Now the 10-minute version, I'll go hard for that one. But this one, it's just okay. It's just not up there for me. It's definitely not my favorite track 5, like, at all. Probably in my lower track 5, or probably middle track 5s, It's there, but it's just not my favorite. I mean, I like it. Sometimes it's like too slow for me though. Like sometimes I just want something crazier. And I feel like the 10-minute version does do that.
I actually prefer the original version to the 10-minute version. I think the 10-minute version sounds a little bit more electronic, and I think that the editing is tighter on the 5-minute version, so like it rocks more, and I think it is a tighter package. But we'll see when we get to it. But I'm again shocked how low All Too Well ranked. But hey, next up on the list, we have the first appearance of that dude from yesterday. We have Everything Has Changed. That's on the list. Weird that the guy from yesterday is on the song, because this was years before that movie came out. But I don't know. It's nice that Taylor Swift brought an up-and-coming actor to sing on one of her songs, so that was cool. I gave this 12 points. I think it's, joking aside, it's a very Ed Sheeran kind of song in terms of the rhythm interplay between the guitar and the vocal melody. It's very clear that like the melody lines were written by Ed Sheeran. I think lyrically, maybe it was Swift who wrote the lyrics, but I think like in terms of the like way the vocals are phrased, that is very much Ed's style. They sound very good on the track together. I think it's very catchy. I think it's very pleasant. I ended up enjoying this one, and I'm not an Ed Sheeran hater, but I'm not a fan either. I'm, swiftly neutral on Ed Sheeran, which, by the way, the subreddit Swiftly Neutral is really not that neutral. They're mostly Taylor Swift haters, and just like, I want to pretend I'm neutral, but say I really hate Taylor Swift. Just like, oh, I'm saying I'm a centrist, but really I'm a libertarian. But yeah, Everything Has Changed. It is a fine enough song. Julia gave it 16 points despite the fact that she hates Ed Sheeran. But she said good song is good song. Steve?
Julia's ranking sounds atrocious.
I told you her ranking was bullshit in
He
the
is
chat.
all over the place.
You didn't believe me when I said her ranking was like the most bullshit ranking we've ever gotten, but like it's
Yeah, I mean, it's looking like that from what I'm hearing. Yeah.
I mean, like, you might think, like, okay, Greg's rankings are full of shit, but there's like a logic to it. Like, Greg likes the weird, like, stuff. Like, with my Kiss rank, is like, okay, Greg likes Peter Criss 78 and The Elder, because he's a fucking weirdo and likes the weird, like, left turns. This isn't even the weird
There
left
you go,
turns.
demonetizing yourself, Greg.
Ah, shit. Alright, there we go. We've lost all the money. Damn it. Julia's ghost possessed me to drop the F-bomb when talking about her taste. Rest in peace, Julia. But yeah, Julia gave it 16 points, ranked it higher than anybody else. But Steve, you gave this 7 points. Does Ed Sheeran really do it for you?
No, I also am an Ed Sheeran hater in general. I mean, there have been like 2 occasions where I've ever encountered an Ed Sheeran thing and said, all right, that's not too bad. There's that video of him playing with a live looper, and that was pretty good. I was like, all right, I recognize the musical talent that goes into that. Good for him. And there is, in fact, the film Yesterday, wherein his weird presence is so immersion breaking that it's just kind of funny again, even though his jokes don't work, but his mere presence turns it back into a comedy from not being a very good film to start with.
I loved Yesterday,
song,
but also
yeah,
I'm a Beatles simp.
You are a Beatles
Please
simp.
step on me, Paul.
Oh dear. It's really demonetized today. Yeah, but this song, like, he could have been worse. He did not make it actively bad, as he often does. It's just another generic middle of the road Taylor Swift song with a dude singing on it. I guess he gets some credit because the dude doesn't sound like Chatty Naps. So it's got that going for it.
Let's see. Alexis, you gave this 4 points. You ranked it significantly lower than Julia, and you put in the exact same spot as Mike. So you and Mike back on the same page. Ed Sheeran, yay or nay?
I mean, I like Ed Sheeran's music separately. I like Taylor's music separately, but together, I don't think they make that great of music, unfortunately.
Ooh.
I love their friendship. They have a couple of collaborations, and I don't really like them that much. They're not bad. They're not like terrible. I just don't love them.
Mike, Ed Sheeran, yay or nay?
I mean, overall, I guess I'd probably say neutral. The fact that he has a couple of songs where I'm like, okay, I guess that makes me more slightly favorable than neutral, but no, I certainly don't consider myself like a big fan of his or anything. I'm clearly not that big of a fan of his because nothing about this song really like screamed Ed Sheeran's song to me. And I even noted Ed Sheeran doesn't help or hurt the song for me. I don't think I would have known it was him if I hadn't seen his name. Um, and that just might be a reflection of the song for me in general. It's just another song like this, and I was kind of zoning out at this point, and um, it's nothing offensive, but it's just Taylor Swift. To me, sounded like Taylor Swift singing with some guy. It turned out to be Ed Sheeran, who I would think I would have recognized his voice because I feel like I typically do when I hear a song of his on the radio or something. But he didn't even seem that distinct to me on this song. So, like Alexis says, I don't think for some reason the creative juices between the two of them just like aren't creating anything magical.
Well, yeah, we've got some.
Ed Sheeran brings the delightful flavor of white rice to everything he does.
I mean, at least in this case, that's what it is. I'm not familiar, at least that I know of, with their other collaborations, but that is spot on for this one.
Well, hey, next up on the list is a song that Julia gave 17 points to, so towards the top of her ranking. So again, Agent of Chaos Julia. We've got The Lucky One, and that's on the list, which this one is a more reasonable song to give 17 points to, but still her ranking is just absolutely ridiculous. I ranked this one 6 from the bottom, so like lower ranked but still good. I don't know, it's a cool song. I like the drum pattern a lot. It has good energy to it. It's catchy. Lyrically, it is the G-rated version of Poison's Fallen Angel. So it's a fine, catchy song, good lyrics. No complaints for it, just there's better songs in the album. Mike, you gave it 1 less point than me. What's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, so I had it 5th from the bottom, and it ended up 5th from the bottom, so that is correct. Yeah, once again, Julia is insane. I agree, like you said, this one is a little less insane, but it's still wild how wrong she was about how many songs. It's not like she had one fluke song on this list. Like, apparently she just did the whole... are you sure she didn't just send it to you backwards?
No, I
like,
asked.
Or you misinterpreted it or something?
I asked, like, so wait,
Yeah.
is this song supposed to be at the top? And no, I did specifically ask, and then proceeded to tell her, like, how wrong she was.
This is probably the first song on my ranking, like going from bottom to top. Probably the first one that's like solidly in middle category and not boring. I said it's another Taylor Swift song. That's not a compliment or an insult, but it's definitely mid. On its own, I think it's solid. It's kind of like Taylor Swift filler to me, and I know filler means different things to different people. Like some people hear filler and they think it's like worst of the worst. To me, filler is just like, it's not bad enough to be bad, but it's definitely not your hit material. It's just kind of a song that sounds like that artist, and it pads out the album a little bit, which kind of made more sense like decades ago when albums were only like 9 or 10 songs. I don't know if you really need filler when your albums are like 18 to 20 songs now, but and that's not just a Taylor Swift thing. That's just kind of a modern thing. So yeah, it sounds like a competent Taylor Swift song, but it's not special enough to really go beyond that for me.
So interesting, as we're talking about the lengths of albums, a sort of inversion of that is like a lot of K-pop albums are like 7 songs, and like 3 of them are 1-minute interludes. And just like, I feel like you guys are cheating. There's a middle ground between Taylor Swift, like, I'm gonna drop like 50 songs at midnight and you just have to deal with it, to like, we dropped 7 but really like actually 3. Like there's
I mean, at that point that's an EP,
right.
You know?
But it's considered an album. Let's see, Alexis, you gave this 7 points. What's your thoughts on The Lucky One?
Honestly, I feel like it should be higher, but it just can't be because it's good, but it's just not better than the other ones. But I do love it lyrically. I feel like where it like is not as good for me as musically. I feel like if it had different music or something, I would love it way more. But I do love it. It's just not high enough.
And Steve, you gave this 9 points. What are your thoughts on this?
I had this one sandwiched comfortably between the last time and the moment I knew, which is to say right in the middle of the ranking, because it is an eminently just fine pop song with some country influences. You know, this block of songs in the middle here, I didn't use the random number generator to give them their final ranking, but I don't think you would have noticed much difference if I had.
I just realized
Other than you'd all be much more angry at me if I admitted it.
Now I'll just never know if you actually did it or not. I mean, hey, if they're
I'm here to talk about Taylor Swift and tell lies, and I'm all out of lies. Wait, that's a They Might Be Giant song, I think.
I mean, hey, if you got to use dice, you got to use dice. I also realized we're actually kind of flying through this ranking, so I guess the reason these episodes take so long is because Julia's just so angry all the time.
That's also the
As
most
much as I've been
entertaining part of
crashing
it.
Julia on this podcast, I will give her credit for that her spice does add a flavor to this podcast.
It
The
does.
delicious flavor of anything but white rice.
So I you know, eventually we're just awaiting the inevitable Alexis Julia duel, King Kong versus Godzilla, or you know, like Rodan or Mechagodzilla, you know, whatever, whichever kaiju monster you want to be. You can be a transformer. But
Are
yeah,
Transformers kaiju?
they're big.
All right. Is that your definition of what a kaiju is?
Yeah, just like a
The
big,
Eiffel Tower is a kaiju?
yeah, Eiffel Tower's a kaiju. Trump's
Mount
butt is a
Everest
kaiju. So next up on the list, we've got I Almost Do. A lot of these songs are really close in ranking, so there's not a huge gap in between them. This is only 2 points higher than the last song. And then we got a three-way tie after this with 1 point difference between this and those three-way ties. So again, not super strong opinions on like, oh, this is trash, this needs to rank, you know, at the top. Except for Alexis, as I'm looking at this, because you gave the song 18 points. So second from the top.
Yeah.
Why is this the second best song on the album? And then conversely, Steve gave it 4 points. Steve, why does it suck?
You can go first, Alexis.
Okay. I don't know. I just love it. I feel like it's another one of those, like, kind of dramatic, kind of girly, and it's just for me, you know? It's just what I was meant to hear.
Steve, were you meant to hear this?
That's it.
No, I mean, I think this song probably should have been left on the cutting room floor in that, like, it's just the ballad adaptation of We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together with the same melody and the same words. And I said in my notes that if Greg brings up leitmotif, I will yell at him. It is not. It's just she was being a lazy songwriter, and she stuck these two songs right next to each other, and that was a poor choice. Should have scrapped this one.
I will. Look, I will say that I don't think Taylor Swift is not so clever that she wouldn't use leitmotif, but I also don't think this is leitmotif. I think this is her just accidentally writing the same thing.
Yeah. Probably not intentional.
There's only so many notes.
Writing the same hook twice, and then, she feels the need to have 18 songs on an album, so...
I mean, do you know how many lipstick songs are the same riff?
Hook twice in a row.
Like, oh man, just don't listen to freaking Rock and Roll Forever and the Conan song too closely. So let's see. Mike, where'd you rank this one? Pretty low. You gave this 9 points. What are your thoughts on
It was
this
right in
one,
the
Mike?
middle, yeah. I mean, my notes were, I like it. Not much else to say. A common type of song and subject, and that's okay. And I was not trying to rhyme, but when you say it out loud, it does. No, I'm
You're a
favorable.
better songwriter than her.
Yeah, there you go. I'm favorable toward it. So Alexis had "Sad, Beautiful, Tragic" at number one, and while I respect that, I don't really get it. Her having this at number two, I think, is if I remember, or ranking this high at all. I get that. Like, I understand why someone would like this more than I do. I do think it's a good song. For me, it just kind of ended up in the middle, just based on me liking other ones more. But I can see how this would connect with someone, just based on the kind of music they like or where they're at in their life or whatever. So it is solid. I don't think it's an all-time Taylor classic, but I can see how it could be a very special song to Taylor Swift fans. So I support it.
Yeah, I mean, I rank this lower than everyone who isn't named Steve. So Julia only ranked this 1 point above me. I mean, I like it. This is one of the sort of last like traditional country songs Taylor does. And so I think it's a good traditional country ballad. Sounds good. Like a lot of the stuff on this album where like it's technically a country album, but they're definitely not country songs. This you can argue pretty much is a country song, and it's good. I like it. I don't have too much to say about it, but it's a solid country ballad. So next up on the list is a song that Julia ranked second from the bottom, and then Steve ranked 1 point higher than Julia. So we've got "Stay, Stay, Stay" next on the list. Mike, I think you had Mike, you have the best commentary on the song based upon your notes. So why don't we start with you and then spread to the masses?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think they put it way too low. They're definitely what is wrong with these people? I can't even do this podcast anymore. This isn't even the worst take I've heard on this particular stream or with this group of people, and yet I just can't do it anymore. And I apologize for the dogs.
The robot dogs.
So yeah, my notes were the music sounds like an insurance commercial or something. Or did commercials around that era start sounding like this? Kind of cheesy, but charming song overall. Yeah, I don't know. It just has that very sort of upbeat. I don't know. Ding, 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 ding. I don't know what you do. You guys know what I mean? It's such a song that you hear in all those weird little random commercials, like at Humana, we're here for you. I don't know. Yeah, I think I had it number 6, so I mean I ranked it pretty high. I don't really know what else. It's a pleasant song. It's a little Taylor Swifty in the sense of like relationship drama or whatever, but like we're listening to Taylor Swift, so that's what we're gonna get,
Steve, how do you feel about Humana commercials?
When I think of music for insurance commercials, I think "Lust for Life," which is a banger of a song. But yeah, maybe commercials are bad. But this particular song, yeah, I ranked it third from the bottom. It's got a lot of strikes against it. It's Taylor Swift getting into her main character syndrome stuff again with her like, all of the boys I've ever dated have been these awful takers, and I just want a dream boy this time. And it's like, all right. It's distinctly possible that you're the problem a lot of the time here, Tay-Tay.
I mean, she did write a song about that, where the main hook is, "It's me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me." So
yeah, she wrote that like almost a decade later, and even then she's like, yeah, but I'm still the main character. This song is also riddled with auto-tune artifacts and 2008-esque fake studio banter. It's very, very cheesy and has a lot of like production that dates it in a real bad way to listen to in 2024.
So I will say
Spoiler
this about
alert,
the studio.
there's more of that to come on this album.
There's a lot of that on this album. This is just the first one that came up in my ranking so far.
So about the studio banter, and we actually did past the studio banter with the Ed Sheeran song. Um, I do, to not be a complete cynic, I do think that some of the studio banter is authentic. And I do think this is authentic studio banter that was left in. But the fact that the studio banter was redone on Taylor's version does... It's super awkward and kind of cringe. And the fact that, like, it's clear that, like, she is, like...
That's amazing.
Yeah, even Ed Sheeran had to redo his studio banter. Are you ready to go? Like, the studio banter is there for all those songs, which I get it because you're trying to make it a replacement for the fans, but also, like, there comes a point where it's like it's putting on too much of an act, and it just feels inauthentic at that point. So I understand where, like, you as the artist, like, okay, I want to make this as close to the original as possible so I can just get my, licensing from it, and the fans want to still have the studio banter because that's important to them, so I'm still going to do it. But that's, like, a line for just, like, it feels too awkward for me. But I do think that this probably was, like, an authentic thing they picked up in the studio and then stuck it in the song. And I think that's fine. But yeah, the Taylor's version, remake of the studio banter, that's so fun. It does not land each time I listen to the Taylor's version.
It's so cringe.
Alexis, how do you feel about the studio banter on the Taylor's version of this song?
No, I definitely agree with you. It's definitely not as good as the original at all, unfortunately, because that is like one of the higher on my ranking. I put it as number 5, like for this album. I just think it's a great song, honestly. So Steve and Julia actually have the majority of like what other people think, where they have it ranked pretty low. Because this is actually a really hated song by like most Swifties. Like people either love it or they absolutely hate it. I'm on the side of loving it. I just think it's really fun. I think it's cute. I don't know. I just have never hated it. I think it's good. But everybody else does hate it, so I understand.
Oh, I don't hate this one. I actually ranked it pretty high. I gave it 13 points, so only one spot below Mike, who is one spot below Alexis. But also, I like the bullshit happy songs that a lot of fans hate. It's like, oh, it's too upbeat. I'm not listening to music to be happy. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's cute. I like it. I think it's pleasant. Aside from the cringe of the talking at the end of the Taylor's version, which she actually does a good job with it. And if I didn't know it was the Taylor version, like, she pulled it off. But also, that just makes me more skeptical of everything you do. Like, how much is this an act? How much you lying if you can fake that, Taylor? See, now the bird is leaving because he's upset with Taylor's lies.
He wanted to be on the laptop instead of on the chair, so.
But yeah, any other comments on stay, stay, stay before we move on?
I think they are wrong for ranking it low. They're wrong, but it's okay.
All right, so next up on the list is a song that a lot of Swifties apparently also hate. And Alexis ranked this third from the bottom, so this is probably where she's more of a normie Swiftie. Girl at Home is next on the list. So I gave this 9 points. Lyrically, I don't hate it. Because it's basically saying, like, no, cheating is bad, dude, and I'm not going to cheat with you. Even though, like, yeah, you're hot, I lose respect for you because you're going to go cheat on your girl. I'm like, you know what? I kind of get behind this message of the song. Cheating's bad. Write a song about cheating is bad. Like, yeah, I can't complain. It's catchy. I like catchy. I don't know. I enjoy this one. I like the message behind it. Yeah. Catchy. Why does everyone hate this, Alexis?
Honestly, at first they were saying it was like misogynistic, I guess, but I really don't think it is. Like, it's kind of not, but it kind of is. Because like the part where she's like, I might have went along with it if I hadn't been just like this other girl. That's like kind of crazy. Because like she's like, oh, I might have like cheated with you, but I know how that other girl like would feel because that actually happened to me. But if that hadn't happened to her, she honestly might have like went with that dude, and that's just kind of wrong. But I do think it's a fun
that
song.
lyric is wild.
It's a fun song. I can't lie. It's fun. I don't know how it ranked lower than some of these on my list. My list is kind of not correct because I do like it. Maybe it's just because I like all of them. It was hard for me to rank. It's hard for me to put something lower. That one had to go lower though, because yeah.
Taylor
A lot of
Swift, like
people don't
all
like it,
billionaires,
but I
until
like
like she's
it.
confronted with the problem, doesn't care about it. And silence.
Sorry, I couldn't hear anything you said.
Oh, I was saying that Taylor Swift, like all billionaires, doesn't care about problems until it directly affects her.
Kind of, yeah.
Mike, you gave this 16 points. Clearly you are a man who is faithful to the women he is with. What do you think about this song?
Yeah, I apparently went crazy with my ranking on this one, all the way at number 4. So a couple interesting things. This one really made some jumps for me. I don't really remember, but it was probably like 12, and then it went to like 8, and then when I was finishing up last night, I'm like, no, I actually really like it. I'm really digging it. And I will be completely honest that like by the time I finish this, and isn't this like the very last song of the bonus tracks? I wasn't even
I think the moment I knew
like
was the
getting
last
the
one.
lyrical.
But this is
Yeah,
like,
I wasn't even.
it's refreshing.
Yeah, well, it was that, but I wasn't even. I wasn't even paying attention to the lyrics at that point. Like I was just enjoying the music of it. It's more upbeat. I said it's a good little tune. It definitely should have been on the main album. Yeah, I just found it pleasant. I wasn't even thinking about the subject matter. I don't know. Maybe 4 is a little high. I even debated with a couple. I remember at one point I had stay, 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 and then another one we haven't gotten to yet above this. And then I don't know. I just really was digging this one at the time. Put it pretty high. So even if it's not my number 4, it's probably like in my top 6 or so. So underrated song. And I'm not just saying this to crap on all the ballads, but really, when you have so many ballads on the album, and then something like this makes it as a bonus track, like I don't know, I definitely think this is main album material.
Once again, Mike can't handle a Michael Bolton album where it's like 9 ballads and then a token rock song on the album. Like too many ballads. What's with all these
I mean,
ballads?
that's a decent analogy because I really enjoy Michael Bolton's music and his voice. But yeah, those albums I typically don't sit down and listen to like as albums. I will just get in the random mood for a random Michael Bolton song.
No, I mean, I get it. I enjoy the albums, and I do think I kind of like how it's hilarious how he does the inverse of the rock formula, was just the token rock song per album. Like, to me, that's just the most hilarious thing. I love that. Let's see. Steve, you gave this 12 points, so you ranked this pretty high also. You're also faithful to your woman, so...
Top. Right? Yeah, I much like Alexis, I really got caught out on that, like, I might have done it if it hadn't been done to me lyric. I was like, wow, that's some classic Taylor Swift narcissism. Probably the big thing that got this, I mean, it's got an interesting narrative, so it gets some points for that. And also, speaking of production techniques, borrowed from 2008 through 2010, the band passed drum fills on this sound just like some of the drums in Santa Gold's debut from 2008, and that album is really good, and Santa Gold is an underrated pop musician. So anytime I see something that sounds like Santa Gold or features her, I'm like, ooh, let's check that out.
So a fun fact about this song is that of all the songs that we've done up to this point on the podcast, this is the one where the Taylor's version deviates the most from the original, where the Taylor's version actually sounds a lot more electronic, and it kind of sounds like there's like a robot filter on the voice. So, sounds like Mike Dar and the Fighters, the Taylor's version of this track. And so it's interesting.
Yeah,
like,
I was trying not to give any spoilers, but yes, I actually became a collaborator with Taylor Swift.
That makes sense. That's
So we got to put the robot icon over her head in this. Where is she, Greg?
She couldn't make it to the stream. She's with Julia, getting matching tattoos.
We missed most of that, Greg.
You know what? It wasn't that good of a joke.
That's fair.
I
think a lot of what you're saying isn't making it through to Discord, but it is making it through to the the stream whenever I check it. So.
Oh, that's and everyone on stream heard the bad joke, but none of you did. How unfortunate.
Yeah, the fans can hear you, and that's what's important. And we can't hear you, and that's actually kind of a bonus.
It's the best of both worlds.
No, that's Miley Cyrus. So since Alexis, you're the only other person who heard the Taylor's version, which version do you prefer, the original or the Taylor's version?
Definitely the original. Taylor's version was kind of bad to me.
So
a lot of people thought that.
A song that a lot of fans thought was bad already, she made worse.
Yes.
Artist of the generation. All right, next up on the list, we've got the last song of the three-way tie. Holy Ground is next up. So I gave this 8 points. Really, again, good driving rhythm to this, good pulse. I definitely enjoyed it. Julia gave this 12 points, and Mike gave this 13 points, so he's actually kind of aligned with Julia on a song for once in this ranking. Mike, how do you feel about this one?
This was an interesting one for me that I sort of struggled with where to rank it because, well, my notes were started nice and upbeat, but I feel like it never fully developed. It would be multiple spots higher, but all of the songs above have more memorable qualities to me. So it has the conventional, like, energy and stuff that I like in music, but it just doesn't ever really, like, break out into a truly memorable song to me. So energy-wise and stuff, I could have gone higher, but just strength of song-wise, I could have gone maybe a couple spots lower, so it just kind of ended up at number 7 for me. Yeah, and I couldn't even exactly pinpoint like how I would change it. I don't know. I feel like it could have used a bigger chorus or something, but I don't know. It's one of those songs where it's good, it's not great. Is I guess a fair summary of it. But I'm sorry, Julia had it one higher than me or one lower?
One lower. So, but you're pretty much aligned on this one.
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah, I'm a little surprised, but that's cool. Finally, a win for Julia.
Right. And so let's see, Steve, you ranked this. You only gave this 6 points to. You were not a fan of Holy Ground, but also we know you're very religious. So like you're like, the song and the sacrilege.
Greg, you know exactly why I ranked this one as low as it did. So longtime listeners may remember a few episodes ago that I pointed out that one of the songs sounded a lot like a famous emo song, and Greg was quick to defend it by saying it was co-written by the guy from Boys Like Girls, so probably he's the one who ripped off the Taking Back Sunday hook. But this one is listed as being a solo songwriting venture by Swift, so clearly she herself ripped off Gives You Hell by All American Rejects for the pre-chorus of this one.
Well, you know what they say.
No collaborators.
They say great artists borrow and billionaires steal. So.
This is true.
Hashtag class consciousness. Alexis, you gave this 8 points. Are you class conscious?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't love this song. It's not the worst song on the album, but it's just kind of average. I do like it more than I used to like it. This used to be like honestly pretty low on my ranking, but I listened to it again and I was like, okay, not that bad, but it's just not the best. Honestly, this is the one song I really can't remember what it sounds like most of the time. Like I always forget like what it sounds like.
Interesting, because
yeah, I agree with that. I remember like more its vibe than how it actually goes. I'm like, oh yeah, that one song that's like kind of upbeat and energetic amidst like 97 ballads, but I could never actually really hum it or sing it back to you or anything. And that's why it doesn't ascend higher for me.
I can hum or sing it back to you because it gives you hell. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kind of.
Joke landed.
There's only
Landed
so
with
many
a
notes.
Giant splash.
All right, Shamu, let's move on to the next song on the list.
Shamu?
Shamu, yeah, Giant Splash.
Ah, okay, yeah.
That joke also
I
landed.
get it. Hey-o!
Hey, jokes.
The dynamic comedy stylings of Steve and Greg. We don't even get each other's jokes.
Right? So next up is what Julia considers to be the worst song on the album. I disagree. Alexis disagrees. Everybody disagrees because no one else ranked it as the worst song on the album except for Julia. We've got Treacherous, and that's on the list. I was kind of shocked that like the boring Snow Patrol song ranked really, really high on Julia's ranking, but the song co-written by the Semisonic guy was like, nope, that's trash, second from the bottom. I was really confused by that, and Julia said, nope, the song is hot garbage. She thinks it's the worst. She thinks it should burn in a fire and die, and I just, I don't see it. I think that, that bridge is really, really good. And it's also clearly not written by Taylor, but it's still really, really good. It's just a great bridge. I mean, look, the Semisonic guy writes good songs. Semisonic's a good band. It's a good song. It's like, it's early enough in the album where you're not burnt out on ballads yet, and so it's a good change of pace. It's catchy, and it just has like the big dramatic builds that work. So I'm a fan of this one. I gave it 10 points. Alexis gave it 16 points, Steve gave it 15, and Mike gave it 7. So Mike is the least hot on this out of anybody who isn't named Julia. So Mike, why don't you go, and then we'll go to Steve and crescendo with Alexis.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because clearly I'm, I guess, technically the closest to Julia on this one, and yet I'm like, come on, she's wrong. It's not the worst song on the album. I literally just said it's a fine song, just nothing particularly special to me. And I stand by that. I think I had it ranked one of the higher ballads. It just isn't a big, it just, again, out of all the Taylor Swift songs, ballad or not, I just don't think it's one of her best. I'm fine with people liking it more than me, though. I can see, again, where I'm not her main demographic. It's not really very memorable to me. It's just not another one that I really hear in my head, hours after listening to or whatever. So just another kind of good but not great Taylor Swift song.
And Steve, you ranked this pretty high, so just like the 90s alt-rock fan, was like, Semisonic, man, I have to rank it high.
I mean, I didn't even realize it was Semisonic guy, but Semisonic is pretty good. Mostly why it ranks so high for me is because I think this song is an overconfident Taylor Swift confessing to a hate crime. So I'm going to use S word throughout my description here because I'm pretty sure the word she's using for incline is intended in the racial slur against Chinese or Vietnamese people context. I think this song is about her developing a grudge against a random Chinese or Vietnamese American person and tracking them down and murdering them and hiding their bodies somewhere, and she just thinks she can get away with it because she's rich and famous and a beloved American white girl. There's all the clues there. There's the constant use of the S word and calling him treacherous. There's all we are is skin and bone. There's that whole stanza about 2 headlights shine through a sleepless night and I will get you alone. Nothing safe is worth the drive. I will follow you home. It's she murdered somebody.
Really quick, I just want to clarify. Alexis, have you watched our previous streams of the first 3 albums?
Yes.
Okay, so you are aware that
you're prepared for this sort of
you are aware that Steve has been desperate for Taylor Swift to write more avant-garde material. So at this point, he's just like, you know what? I'm gonna write it for her.
I gotta write it for her because she's not doing it. She didn't write an interesting story, so I'm going to add murder to it. Country songs are about murder all the time.
I mean,
That's true.
he's not wrong. I mean, he's wrong about this. He's wrong about this song, but he's not.
Co-write this with her.
Who should have written this with her?
Marky Mark.
Ooh,
actually,
all right.
If it had been Marky Mark, I think that would remove all ambiguity, but it would be about him committing a hate crime.
It would definitely. Oh, jeez. I don't even have a joke about Marky Mark committing hate crimes. It's just like a fact.
It's not a joke. It's in all serious.
It's like, hey, I'm from Boston.
Of committing hate crimes.
All right, I can't even transition. Just Alexis, just get us back on the train tracks after whatever that was.
I don't know what to follow up with that, honestly.
Thomas the Tank Engine got a machine gun and went Twisted Metal on us.
I just thought it was a fun song. I didn't think it was about murder.
Hot take Alexis saying the song isn't about murder. All right, so let's move on from Treacherous. Oh, wow, yeah, I can't even... What a great transition, back when we had drops. So, and next up on the list is... Oh, Julia gave this 15 points. She's actually kind of right about this song. Like, this song does deserve to be ranked high. I gave it 11 points, but, like, giving it 11 points isn't bad. Alexis gave it 17 points. Mike gave it 8, and Steve ranked this as the worst song on the album. It wouldn't be an episode of this show without Steve being completely wrong about something. So, taking the steel chair out of Julia's hands and then smashing the rest of us with that steel chair with his awful, awful takes. Begin Again is next on the list. Steve is notoriously heartless and doesn't care about lyricism, unless they're about aliens or vampires or some nerd shit. And so because this song is about just like, hey, I've been hurt in a relationship, but now this guy is being nice to me and like actually showed up on time for a date and pulled up a chair for me, which also, man, she was dating shitty dudes if they're not even going to show up on time. Just like this guy is actually just like being a gentleman and treating me nice on a date and giving me hope for the future. That is a nice sentiment for a song after like, the rebound from a relationship that could be kind of ugly and messy. And I think that line, and then on a Wednesday in a cafe, I watched it begin again. Might not have been watched, but whatever word is there. That phrase with the melody is just like ingrained in my brain as one of like the big Taylor Swift ballad hooks, where I remember it from back in the day, and just like it feels iconic. And so it is an iconic song, a great closer to the album. Like it's a nice little bow on this record. I mean, obviously there's the bonus stretch, but it's a very nice closer. I like a lot. Yeah, I'm generally favorable towards this. And Steve, why is this the worst song on the album?
So the album closer is the place to put the most epic song on the album, or like a short little gentle outro-y thing, or the song that really changes things up stylistically from everything else. It's not the place to put a sleepy 4-minute ballad that doesn't go anywhere and also has Nate Chape's background vocals and steel guitar. I mean, steel guitar is a personal vendetta of mine, so I can grant that some people like it, but I don't. But just like nothing about this to make me like it.
Yeah, no, I think thematically it's really appropriate. I think it's catchy. I know it's a ballad, so that means it's automatically a bad closing track for you.
No, you just need to make the ballad epic. This isn't an epic ballad. This is a sleepy ballad.
Counter, Bad Out of Hell 2 and 3 close with sleepy ballads, and those are phenomenal albums.
I've never actually listened to Bad Out of Hell 3 all the way through because it's very hard to find.
It's actually back on streaming.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh,
Nice.
hell yeah. All
I
right.
found that a couple months ago. I'm like, oh, that's convenient.
Cool.
Yeah.
Next month, Bad Out of Hell 3. We're completing the trilogy, guys. We're back.
Huzzah!
Actually, no, there is a surprise of what album we're doing next, which I will reveal at the end of the episode, but it's not what you think. Because there's something very important that we have to do before we get to the vault tracks. Alexis might have an inkling of what it might be. But Begin Again. Alexis, you ranked this a second from the top. Why is Steve so full of shit?
I mean, he's got his opinions. I've got mine. I like ballads. Okay, that's why
Alexis,
my
you're
top
too
two
nice
are,
for
like,
this show.
everything's
Call Steve a
ballads.
shithead.
But that'll
We're already
demonetize
demonetized.
you. Oh, okay, so I guess he's a shithead. I like songs about love. You know, this one is about beginning a new love. That's actually good. So yeah,
Mike,
it's just a cute song.
It is cute. Mike, you gave this 8 points. You didn't rank it super high, but I did read your notes. You said you did like the lyrics. So is Steve really wrong about this being last place?
Oh yeah, Steve is easily wrong about this, so I will give Steve credit for that. That's my classic best friend Steve right there. Like I feel like Steve really is my my bipolar best friend, where you know he has these great takes and comments, and then terrible ones as well. So, but
One of us is the evil foil, but it's not clear which.
exactly. And where are we? We're in the ranking. Where are we from the bottom now with this?
Let's see. We've got
How many songs in are we?
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 songs left. So this is So this is top 8.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, I'm fairly close with, I guess, with how it ended up. Oddly enough, this is actually one, and I feel like we have at least one of these every podcast with Taylor Swift, where I feel like I like it more than the rest of the group is going to like it, and then I like, out of guilt or shame or whatever, like put it a few spots lower, and then it ends up like higher than I put it. Yeah, I like I said, this one connected quickly for me. I like the song. Like Alexis said, I just like love. I think, you know, right away I knew what it was about and felt the vibe. And it's interesting because I agree and disagree with Steve in terms of, I agree with him that the last song on an album should either be like big and anthemic, or it should be, you know, a nice little outro or the right kind of ballad. And that's where I disagree with him, because I think this is a perfect ending ballad. It's literally called Begin Again. It's about, like, you know, starting anew, starting fresh. And I feel like that's kind of where the story of the main album, you know, without the bonus track, where that's ending off. It's like, hey, you know, I'm going to begin again. And, you know, it's like the happy ending in a movie or a show or something like that. So, yeah, to me, it made perfect sense as the end. In a way, I was just like, this is why albums don't always need bonus tracks. I thought it was a really good ending, so I'm surprised he didn't. But then again, he put it at the bottom, and he's just wrong about that. So, yeah, this is a good song. I can see why anyone would really like it or rank it high.
All right, so everyone agrees Steve is completely wrong about this track. Even Julia, who's not here, ranked it high. So even Julia thinks you're wrong. You should feel bad about yourself if even Julia thinks you're wrong.
I'm honestly surprised that she ranked it that high.
Yeah, and
But then
unfortunately,
again, she ranked the last time high.
yeah. I don't know. Her ranking she's an agent of chaos. So next up is a song that I ranked relatively low, only gave it 5 points. But then Julia gave it 14 points, Mike gave it 10, Alexis gave it 10, Steve gave it 14 points. But, like, I'm not mad that ended up here. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Next up is Come Back, Be Here. I'm not even upset that it ranked high. It's just, like, it doesn't do it for me as much as some of the other tracks, but, like, it's good, it's catchy. I have no complaints with this one. It is just a pleasant little ballad. Or, yeah, what do you even call this about? It's like in between a ballad and not a ballad. You know, I'll call it a salad. It's right in between.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I ranked it a little bit higher than the ballads, because it isn't just another ballad to me.
Yeah. Alexis, what did you think of this one?
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of surprised that everybody else ranked it kind of high. I thought this would be one of the ones that I'd rank it higher than like most people, but I'm kind of surprised you ranked it the lowest.
I mean, there's a lot of good songs. It's more just like I like other songs did it for me more. And so it's just like I had to stick a number on
Yeah.
it. Really, anything above the last time, there's like a significant chasm between like that song being dead and buried near the Earth's core, and then the rest of them like being like, I don't know, couple stories up in like a moderately sized office building. Like there's a big gap between them.
Yeah. I think it's a good song. It's not too slow, not like the most like pop or anything like that, but it's good.
Steve ranked it the highest aside from Julia. They both gave it 14 points. So Steve, feel free to speak on behalf of Julia and yourself.
Well, I can't speak to whatever wild criteria Julia uses for these things because I am constantly shocked by her choices. But this one, yeah, this one's a decent song on the better end of decent, right? Like I feel like most of these albums, there's like a good third or so of it that I put in the middle that's all take or leave filler. But this one is like on the better side of that. That if I had been in charge of sequencing this album, this would not have been a bonus track. I would have put this on the original, which would have been 7 tracks long. But that's a sort of a different conversation.
So Steve would have made this a K-pop album.
I would have made this a K-pop album.
Steve would have made this
I
a
would have
K-pop
thrown in
album.
a couple of EDM interludes between the 7 tracks that were on there. There's Worm Quartet, another artist who's on Needlejuice. He put out a Pac-Man themed EP that it was an EP. It's like 20 minutes long, but it's also 20 songs long, and so he spent like a month fighting with the distribution services because they kept on insisting this is 20 tracks long. It's an album. And he's like, no, it's 15, 20 minutes long. It's an EP. But there was much back and forth about it. I think he had to take the word EP out of the title.
That's how Steve saved Christmas.
That's how I saved Christmas.
Mike, you kind of cut yourself off from talking about this song. Did you have any other comments you wanted to add?
Yeah, just to clarify, I didn't cut myself off. My dogs did. They were driving me crazy. But yeah, I put it right at number 10, so it just cracked my top 10. My very brief note was solid enough, but not top Taylor. So again, I guess it kind of falls under that category of whatever other song I was saying, where it's like good filler. It's a Taylor Swift representative song, but I wouldn't, put it in her top tier, or even maybe her second top tier level of songs. But it's one that comes on like, and you're like, oh cool, oh yeah, she did this song. This is pretty good. I like hearing this one. It's refreshing from hearing the same hits over and over, something like that. So, good, solid. I approve of it. It just isn't special enough to rank higher than that for me.
Speaking of people sick of Taylor Swift's hits, Julia gave the song only 4 points, but Alexis gave it only 5 points. Next up on the list is 22. So, kind of shocking. So, spoilers, I ranked this as my number 1 because, again, and the song came out when I was 22, so I was like, oh, it's like it's for me. Except it probably wasn't for the boys, but I don't care. It's for the boys who wear the makeup and heels, and I was in a glam rock band, so damn it, I wasn't gay, but doing glam rock close enough to jam to 22. Look, it's a bop, it's catchy. It's this is why am I blanking on the songwriter's name? The Swedish guys who co-wrote the song and wrote the like Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears songs. Steve, you're
on. Max Martin or
Max Martin.
Martin and Shellback.
Martin and Shellback.
Yeah.
So this is the one of the 3 songs. This song is just it's a joy. I love this song. It just makes me happy when listening to it. it's just feel good, and it makes me feel young, which as I get older, man, am I desperate for that youth back. Please, please let me feel like I'm young with nostalgic music. Oh shoot, this is my nostalgic music now. I am old, desperately longing for the days when I was young and full of vitality. But I mean, again, it's a bop. It has such good energy to it. I don't know. I adore it. I love the song. I think it's great. Julia ranked it. She gave it 4 points because oh, it's pop garbage, which is a really clever take. I love when people say, "Oh, it's pop garbage, therefore it's not good," as if that's like an entire analysis of a song. It's like pop equals bad was
I
bad.
can't hear you. I've lost you.
No, okay. Well, the stream still has me. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. Yes.
Alexis, you gave this 5 points. You align more with Julia than with me on this song. How dare you?
I don't hate the song. Every song's good. I didn't know where to put it, okay? It's just like my least favorite of like the most popular ones, I guess. I don't know, but I can't relate to you. I was not 22 when this came out, but I was 22 when I heard it live for the first time last year when I went to the Eras Tour. So that was pretty cool. That gives it more points. But not enough to bring it to the top for some reason. Honestly, I don't know why it's so low on my ranking. I think I kind of just forgot about it, and then I put it lower.
Mike, you gave this 15 points, so are you too a basic white girl like me and love the song?
A couple interesting things on that. So I was really, when Julia made the comment that she was surprised by which song you had that you hated on this album because it seemed like such a Greg song. I was like, is it 22? Does he hate 22? Like, so I was very confused. Yeah, I mean, so it cracked my top 5. This was an interesting case where I kind of usually when I rank these albums, it's more just like my own personal takes on songs. This one probably gained a couple of points for me because I was kind of looking at it from a big picture of like, is this one of the best songs on the album or not? And I think it is. I said it's another anthem for the right demographic. It's not really for me, but I can see this being a lot of fun for Swifties from teens to late 20s, either looking forward to 22 or reminiscing about it. And that's kind of what you were saying, about Greg. Like you were 22 at the time, you connected with it. Now you look back, you want to be young again, and it totally has that vibe for me. So I feel like it covers many ages, depending on wanting to be 22 or wishing you could go back to 22. Well, I will have to say though, this is one song on the album out of a few where I was noticing things with her voice where I'm like, is she getting worse as a singer? And I'm not trying to insult her, but it was just weird to me because we're 4 albums in. She's huger than ever at this point. She has more.
No, actually, she had an eating disorder, so
experience.
she was getting too thin. She was not huger than ever.
Oh, you get out of here. Yeah, so she was more successful than ever. I'm not body shaming Taylor Swift.
No, and she's openly talked about it. That was a bad joke. That was in poor taste. I am sorry.
her budget had to be bigger. So I'm just surprised. There's times on this album, and this is one of those songs where I'm like, the voice is kind of not there. And this one in particular kind of reminded me of Rebecca Black on Friday, a song that came out a year earlier, where you get a lot of that very sort of synthetic, like, it's Friday, Friday. Like, so there was a little bit of that on this song. I'm in
somehow
a way,
that's more offensive than my joke, which is incredible.
I'll be interested to hear how she sounds on the Taylor's version, which it's tough because I feel like a lot of re-recordings, in general, you just lose that youthful authenticity. But in a way, it might be nice if some of those rough synthetic edges are smoothed out a little bit. So we'll see.
We're already demonetized. You're allowed to say young dumb fuck energy.
You know what? I would have had that phrase come to mind.
Victor sadly is not here. Steve, you gave this 11
I can
points.
Build off of. Yeah, I have a lot of the same interpretations of the song as Mike, just more charitable. Whereas, Mike says, "Well, this sounds like a Rebecca Black song." I say, no, this sounds like a Kesha song. Max Martin et al., said, all right, let's do that the same way that the Arc Music Factory guy said that to Rebecca Black's parents, but, was a scam artist. It's not a scam. It's just not a good deal.
Versus
He
Max
ripped
Martin is
off
actually really
rich
competent
kids.
and good at what he does.
Right. Max Martin is able to take, attractive teenagers and young adults and leverage it into real pop careers, whereas Arc Music Factory guy is able to take rich kids and take their money. So yeah, so I said, it sounds like she's trying to channel 2010s era Kesha, and it's moderately competent, and it makes for a pretty decent song doing that. I think, had I been listening to a lot of pop radio against my will in 2012, I would have found that incredibly annoying, but I wasn't, so I don't really have a problem with it.
And Julia is not here to defend her terrible, terrible takes on the song. So she is just wrong. But speaking of people being wrong, apparently I'm wrong about this Nets track. So Julia, Mike, and Alexis all gave it 11 points. Steve ranked it as number 1, and I ranked it 3rd from the bottom. State of Grace is next on the list. And so it's interesting, Mike, based upon your notes, we might actually have the same opinion on the song, but I just ranked it significantly lower because of it, because it's basically like the same thing over and over again for a while. And if this
5 minutes, yeah.
If this song was like a minute as a concert opener, cool. This song as a 5-minute song, that's kind of a lot for this one. And it did grow on me over time, because just the words in my head of Victor saying, but 2 chords, that's the perfect song. Just 2 chords over and over again. I'm like, okay, this is the platonic ideal of a song for Victor. It's 2 chords over and over again. The rhythm section is basically just doing U2. This is what Victor would love from a Taylor Swift song. And so because of that, I was able to understand the appeal of it. I do like it, but ultimately when I'm ranking against a bunch of other songs that have more than 2 chords, it ends up ranking towards the bottom for me. Mike, since I piggybacked on some of your thoughts, you can go ahead and go next.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like you said, we kind of agree on it and just ended up with different rankings. It started, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm looking forward to where this is going, and then it just for 5 minutes kind of did that same sort of cool thing. And then that's it's the album opener, and then I got to Red, and I'm like, oh well, I think Red's a much better song. Why wasn't Red the album opener? And then I was like, well, if you blew the load with Red first and then put this at number 2 or something, you might change the whole momentum of the rest of the album or something. I don't know. I do think you put it too low at 3 from the bottom, but I can definitely understand it going lower than I put it. Again, I'm a little harder on ballads than I should be, so the fact that this wasn't, a more upbeat, energetic song gained it some points for me. But again, it's another song where there was potential, but it needed more. It needed, just like a really cool bridge or just a change in there, something. And for whatever reason, it just didn't get that.
Alexis, you also ranked this in the same spot as Mike.
See, I thought it did have a decent bridge. I ranked this one at the top. I thought this was a good song. It started off, I felt like it was a really good way to come out swinging for this album. This was just like a straight up power pop rock song of that era, and I was like, oh, this is a cool direction to hear her go in. If a pop punk band, like if Cruiserweight had covered this, it would be an absolute banger. It would also be much shorter because Cruiserweight would have picked up the tempo and it would have only been 3.5 to 4 minutes long, and maybe Mike would have liked it then. But yeah, I think this is a good song.
Good song, no asterisks. Wow. High praise for Steve.
It could be a better song, but it could be a better song is the best we're getting out of any of these.
So, Alexis, what do you think about State of Grace?
I don't know. Honestly, I feel like about 5 of the songs on here, like from my number 9 to like my number 13, Like they're kind of just interchangeable. Like on different days, one's gonna be higher. This one just happened to be like the highest of those 5 on the day that I listened to this album. So I like it, but honestly, right now I can't really remember what my thoughts even were.
How do you feel about the chords
It's
in the
just
song, all 2
good.
of them?
They're great. They're great chords. I mean, I definitely disagree with you. I definitely don't think it's like bottom 3. It did deserve that.
I mean, all right, so I do feel bad that it's hanging out with The Last Time and The Moment I Knew. So, like, yeah. But also, I liked Sad, Beautiful, Tragic better. Should I have ranked Sad, Beautiful, Tragic lower?
Yeah, there's no way this is
No.
as sad and tragic as Sad, Beautiful, Tragic.
Uh,
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was more trying to say Greg was wrong. Alexis, just earmuffs.
Alexis is too innocent for this podcast of jaded men and Julia.
I think it's just the fact that like most everybody on here like doesn't love ballads, but that's my thing.
I love
I'm all
ballads.
here for the ballads.
Well,
It's,
I
like,
think
kind
for
of
me
what
being a
Greg
big
was
like
saying earlier.
80s rock guy, I like 1 or 2 like big ballads on an overall up-tempo album. And so I'm not used to like a Taylor Swift type artist where it's like 50-50 or 60-40 and I'm like it's so much all at once.
And
Yeah.
Steve is a true
I mean,
punk.
it's
He
kind of
hates
what Greg was
ballads.
saying earlier. Yeah.
Did you ask me something or insult me, Greg? Because I didn't hear
I
it.
insulted you. I said Steve is a true punk. He hates ballads. Well, that's not necessarily an
How
insult to
dare.
a punk fan. It's like, yeah, of course I do.
That's true. It's not. Yeah.
Be like if I called you a
Not
communist,
wrong.
you'd be like, okay, and?
I'd be like, I think that's technically inaccurate, but I need to read more books.
All right, well, we are in the top 4. And next up is Alexis being really wrong about a song on this album. She ranked this at the bottom. Steve gave this 17 points, Mike gave it 18 points, Julie gave it 10, and I gave it 14 points. Next up is Starlight, Alexis's worst song on the album. Alexis, why is this the worst song on the album?
It kind of goes back to what you were saying like a bit ago, where you're like, oh, some Swifties only like the sad song, then they just hate whenever like there's a happy song. This is my like hatred of a happy song. Like I just don't love it. I think it's too happy, and I just don't want it to be my favorite song.
Alexis clearly does not buy into the mythology of Camelot. She's like, screw the Kennedys. Glad most of them are dead. I'll listen to the dead Kennedys instead.
Well, here's the thing about that. It's it is a song she wrote about like not her, you know. So it's kind of just like I don't really love the songs that she does that where she like writes about other people. I like when she
You're
writes
here
about
for the
herself.
narcissism.
Okay? Yeah, I'm here for like what Taylor's feelings are. I don't care about what she thinks about other people. So that's why I don't like that song that much. It's my least favorite on the album. I'm honestly really surprised it ranks so high for everybody else. Am I just like wrong? Do I need to listen to it more and be like, okay, yeah, this is a good song?
Yeah, Alexis
don't
listens
know.
to the Bruce Springsteen catalog. Like, he only wrote like 3 songs about himself. The rest of these are trash.
Exactly. I want the diary, you know? I want the diary of your life. Tell me everything about yourself.
So you're like, okay, Folklore and Evermore, complete trash album. She's writing about all these characters? What is this garbage?
I mean, some of them. Some of them are great songs. Don't get me wrong. I love Folklore, Evermore, but some of the songs I'm like, oh yeah, this isn't really relatable to Taylor's. So no, I don't like it.
All right, so Steve, True Blue Democrat, is like, hell yeah, the Kennedys. I love RFK Jr.
I might have ranked this lower had I realized it was about Kennedy's. Had I realized this was another song where she saw an old photo and just made up a love story for the characters in it. How many times does she do that? It's a weird habit to get into.
She was a Tumblr girl, dude. Is it that surprised that a Tumblr girl would write weird fanfics about that kind of stuff? Except she did in song form. Come on, dude.
That's fair.
You remember
Anyway,
Tumblr in
yeah,
2010.
so I ranked this one third.
I rank this one third. I'm not gonna retract that placement, but I think this does mean that retroactively, not retroactively, future-actively, whatever. When we get to "You Need to Calm Down" and she recycles the woo-hoo-hoos from this song, I'm gonna have to dock points from that one. But
That's leitmotif.
it evoked several other songs that I like, such as by Starlight by the Smashing Pumpkins, and Today by the Smashing Pumpkins, and Starlight by Muse, and then Starlight by Muse again, both in name and in melody. But yeah, like it sounded a lot like a lot of other songs that I also like. So I was like, all right, this is fine. I would rather listen to one of those, but you know, when you want a nice sweet sugary drink, sometimes water is fine too.
And I almost spit out my water when you said that. So Mike, you ranked this the highest out of all of us. You gave it 18 points. Are you just a really big fan of the Kennedys?
Yeah, so I had, again, not the biggest lyrics guy. I really didn't make any sort of Kennedy connection with it. I can say maybe I put it a little too high at number 2. Like, I think it definitely still cracked my top 5. Did I go a little high? Maybe, but I definitely disagree with Alexis all the way at the bottom. Like, come on, you're killing me. But I'm really surprised that I'm going to be the first one to mention this. Like, I liked the song right away when I heard it because I recognized it from 2008 when it was "Don't Trust Me" by 303. Like, does no one else remember that song? Like, right away, I'm like, wow, I can't be the only one hearing this. So I really quickly did a search, and yeah, other people were talking about it too. They're like, oh yeah, there's definitely that similarity in there. Like, people have made like, YouTube videos syncing up the vocals and stuff, like, which I just thought was kind of funny because that's a very different song and subject matter and concept, just two dudes being trashy, rather than Taylor Swift being all Taylor Swifty. So it honestly just kind of made me smile and laugh. But even without that comparison, I did just really enjoy the melody and the song overall. I do have to mention the line about 10 kids is disgusting because even even if you're just exaggerating for song or story, mentioning having any more than 0 kids is disgusting, but 10 is just insanity. I am offended.
Hey man, Irish Catholic. That's just what they do. So was trying really hard to think of a joke about brainworms to like incorporate here. So something about brainworms and vaccines. And anyway, jokes about RFK Jr. aside, haha. Hilarious how he can't get off the ballot in some states because of his incompetency. But anyway, the song is actually, it's funnier in retrospect to think about like how sweet and sincere this song is, and how Taylor Swift probably had like a cordial relationship with RFK Jr. and what an absolute psycho and sellout he has proven to be. But the song, it's catchy, it bops, it's got a good driving beat to it, and I do the way like the instruments are playing, it really gives off a nighttime like party like on the pier atmosphere. And I don't know, it completely sets the mood, sets the stage, and just it's really pleasant. And I think we can all agree that Alexis is completely wrong about this, and even Julia agrees. So Alexis, you're totally wrong about the song. It's great, but also like I get it. Like I don't want 10 kids. Like that's a lot of kids. That's so many kids. 10 cats, great. 10 kids, I don't know, but no longer Catholic. So all right. Moving on to the number 3 song in the ranking. So Steve only gave this song 5 points. I gave it 15. Julie gave it 13. Alexis gave it 12. I'm actually not surprised Julia ranked this one high. But Mike, this is your number 1 song in the album, and Steve gave it 5 points. So Red is next up on the list. Mike, how do you feel about Steve ranking this 5th from the bottom?
I mean, it's one of those things which is obviously so wrong, and he's just trolling, so I'm not even upset about it.
Steve, why is the song not good?
Because it's a hot mess, Greg. As I said in my notes, this whole song gives off vibes of she said, "Oh, I'm doing pop music now," which means I take the exact same thing that I've been doing, but I just slap some like pop production techniques on it. So we're gonna like do some almost glitchy hard edits on the banjos, and I'm gonna sing the same sort of lyrics, except I'm talking about riding down the street in a Maserati in a way that just feels forced even for a rich city girl like her. It's just like she's trying to do pop music but having no idea how. I also said I wanted to pretend that it was an ode to like communism under Lenin, but like that would just be dishonest, so I can't give her the bonus points for it.
So yeah,
I will give Steve a little credit, because even though I like the song a lot, I did mention that in my notes where I said it was kind of funny to hear the electronic voice over a song that sounded more natural to me overall, where, like he said, it's kind of a continuation of her country pop style, and then you just get
yeah.
It's a little funny, but I respect it. It was just a different quality. And it being the second song, I was like, okay, cool. At least it's trying to do something different other than the 5 minutes straight of State of Grace and whatever that was. And I also thought the song had a really cool bridge, which I didn't think State of Grace had, but Steve did. So I am curious to listen to that when we get off this and see who is right and who is wrong.
That would be you.
But yeah,
you were
just
right and Steve was wrong.
A guy who likes energetic music. That's why I put this at number 1.
Yeah, I think this is a standout track from the album. I think it's excellent. And so I think it's important to talk about the history of the album and where the song fits in, because the 3 big singles were the last songs recorded for the album. The record was done, but the Max Martin shellback tracks, those were added after the rest of the record was done and turned into the record label, but Taylor just wasn't feeling satisfied with it and just felt like there was something missing. And then went back and came up with 22 and the other top 2 songs we haven't gotten to yet on this ranking. So I think Red isn't an example of her wanting to do pop music, but starting to feel like confined by country and just like, let's just do some weird stuff. And I feel like Steve, of all people, should respect like, wow, country music is boring, let's do some weird stuff. If anything, that should be like, yeah, finally, like, experiment, be creative. The Maserati thing, I think that is just the authenticity of like, I'm young and have money and I'm buying fancy cars. I do think that doesn't seem like she's trying too hard. That seems like, no, she's accidentally leading us into like how much money she has and how disconnected she's becoming. So, no, I think this is a very authentic, sincere song. And I think, in some ways this song is like a little bit tragic in a way, because this is sort of like the last album for a while where it feels like she's working with like a band. Like Taylor Swift is the band leader. She has her guys that she records with and plays with, and she writes songs with a band in mind. So she is thinking like, okay, who's going to play this part? How's that going to sound with my live guys? And from, 89 onwards, she doesn't think with a band in mind. She just thinks in terms of like pop production. And so this is thinking with a band in mind, but like having some interesting like left turn ideas, because let's be honest, country is kind of a boring genre. So she's like, let's just do something different, please. I've been doing the same thing for 4 albums. Let me get a little bit weird with it.
Left turn ideas, but not that far left.
Yeah, not yet.
She still owns a Maserati.
Still owns a Maserati. No rock and roll left turns here. But yeah, I think it's a great song. It's one of my favorites from the album. Alexis, what do you think about the title track?
I think it's a good song. I mean, I think she did a really good job at picking like the singles and like the standout songs, because they really are just the best songs of the album, and everybody thinks that. Because I mean, our top 3 is going to be like all the most popular song. But I mean, I agree. It's a great song. It's probably my least favorite of like the 3 most popular, but it's still really good.
Well, the 3 most popular in this ranking, because 22 is the other of the 3 most popular on this album.
Well, I guess the 4 popular, because there's like basically 4 popular ones.
And 5 if you count All Too Well
Actually,
and How the
was Red
Fans.
even a single?
I don't know if Red was even a single. No, it did. It had a music video. So yeah.
Well, if it was a single, it's probably like my least favorite of the singles.
But it's also it's the
besides
most
22.
it's the most traditional. Ironic as we talk about it being experimental, it's the most traditional country of all the singles, despite all the weird like robotic stuff that Mike Dar added to the song. This would have been if the album had been turned in as is, this would have been the big single off the album. But I can see why she thought she needed to add more to the album, because what would be the other strong singles to sell to radio? All Too Well and Starlight. The album wouldn't have been as big if not for the Martin Shellback tracks. Tracks.
Are you guys too young to remember how big Don't Trust Me was back in 2008 and 2009? That song was everywhere for a while.
I don't remember it, unfortunately.
I know of it, but yeah, I never listened to 303. I was looking at the lyrics and thinking it would be funny if it was the same song. They were both describing the same picture as some Kennedys. But 303 were just like, tight black dress, girl, we're going to wipe the X's off our hands and drink underage.
Because as we all know, 1940s, they were doing straight edge X's.
Well, they weren't straight edge yet, but they still had to, like, mark X's on kids' hands, right?
No, not in New England in the 40s.
When did they invent the Sharpie?
1950. I don't know when the Sharpie was invented. Well, while you look that
does
up,
kind of seem like a 50s.
You were so
invention.
quick on that. I was like, wait, really, Greg? Do you actually know that?
No.
1964.
Okay.
Same year as Beatlemania. Coincidence? Probably.
What were they Xing kids' hands at the Beatles concerts?
Yeah, you want to get into the Beatles show? How old are you? We got a 2-drink minimum
Sorry, you're
at this
not allowed
Beatles
to
show.
scream unless you're at least 21.
So the number 2 song on this album, Julia gave 5 points to, so she hates this. But I gave it 18 points, Mike gave it 12, Alex gave it 14, and Steve gave it 18 points, which I'm actually genuinely surprised that he ranked this high. But we are never, ever getting back together. Steve, you put this in the same spot as me. I'm confused.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember my thought process. I think just like sort of by process of elimination, like oh yeah, it's a fine pop song. Oh yeah, I'm confusing it with I Knew You Were Trouble. Yeah, it's a decent pop song. I did spend a lot of time like looking at other records that came out that year that were much cooler than hers, which include, the Afterman Ascension by Coheed and Cambria, Clockwork Angels by Rush, L'Enfant Sauvage by personal favorite of Greg, Gojira.
Steve, you're doing the NPC comment. This is like, oh, there were so many indie records much cooler than hers. Ha 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 ha. Like, no.
Right. Enter Shikari's A Flash Flood of Color. Plus, this was within a year of both Fable Cry's debut album and Spoiler Alert by Regdar and the Fighters, which are both indie albums and much cooler than this one.
Look,
she can't yell at her ex-boyfriend for being right.
So here's what I will say. First of all, the Fable Cry debut album is great songs, but not so great. Spoiler Alert is one of the greatest albums of all time. Like, you got me there. Like, I really, like, the reason I'm friends with Steve, for those who don't know, is that, like, I was a fan who was just really into his music, and then I forced him to be my friend. And now he listens to Taylor Swift.
That is pretty much how it went, yes.
So, sorry.
Worst deal ever.
Worst deal ever. But hey, you made that $5 sale. It was worth it. But I think that line in particular, it comes to like a sort of like general music snobbiness that a lot of like pop fans deal with, and I know that Mike deals with as a Kiss fan. We're just like, oh, you listen to that? I listen to stuff that's way cooler than that. I can't believe you listen to something so lame. And I think that is like Taylor Swift aware of her place in the zeitgeist, but also like by calling it out, sort of like giving fans permission to say like, yeah, okay, whatever, you're listening to like something obscure that no one gives a shit about, like this is at least fun. So like I think that was a good counter to that. And that's not to say that I think that Taylor Swift is the greatest artist ever and that there aren't artists that I think are cooler than Taylor. But to act like there's this massive chasm in coolness between Gojira and Taylor Swift where maybe there is, but it's not the direction that you think. I don't know. I think the song is very catchy.
I didn't see Taylor Swift at the Paris Olympics.
That's true. She was not at the Paris Olympics because they were having French artists perform, Steve. But I think that the song Ooh, true. When this song came out, it reminded me of a lot of songs I heard at the Cafe Coco open mic, but in a positive way, just because of how talented a lot of the singer-songwriters in Nashville are, and just how great the competition is. And so for me, this was like, what if you took a song from a Nashville open mic, but had really excellent, tight pop production? And I think it's a well-written song, produced extremely well, and I think that it deserves the number 2 spot. I think it's excellent. Julia probably thinks this is her Taylor Swift sellout period of when she went pop, and oh, she sucks now. Okay, whatever. Let's see. Mikey gave this 12 points. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking about back when we were on the song 22, I made a comment that I kind of ranked it a little bit higher because I was recognizing, its commercial appeal and the appeal to the fan base and everything. I would say the opposite for this song. I feel like collectively as a panel, we've put it a little too high. I get it was a big hit, and I understand why it was a big hit. But is it really the second best song on the album, or is it getting a little bit biased for being a big hit? I think it's the latter. I again still had it at number 8, so I think it's higher than the middle of the album, but I think it got a little bit too much credit. But I'm fine with it. I get it. I get the appeal of it. Her voice and just her whole attempt at like, I'm so edgy and I have attitude. It's a little. I hate to use the word cringe because I feel like people say everything's cringe now, and that's cringe to me. But it kind of is that for me, where I'm like, ooh. But I get it, and I think a younger female audience and everything at the time would probably be like, oh, she's so cool, like this is my girl, so I can respect that. So it's kind of a case where I recognize a pop song. I'm not really the right target audience for it. So good song, just not a personal favorite.
I hear you. I think for me, the melodies on this track are undeniable. Like that, you go talk to your friends, talk to my friends, talk to me part. Like, that's the best melody on the album. And I know that is definitely not a Taylor Swift melody, but man, it's such a freaking good melody. Like, that is nice. Alexis, what do you think of this track?
Well, it is very popular, but I like it. And I guess I was the target audience whenever this came out. Because, I was like a preteen. Preteens are dramatic and they like fun songs. And that's exactly what this is. It's a dramatic and fun song. And I think it deserves all the love and maybe some hate because I guess it's a little cringe. But it's cringe for good reason. It works. Like, it's not like cringe just because it's cringe. It's not like Friday, I guess.
Yeah, it's cringe that works. Like
No,
The Room.
it's not Friday. Yeah, I definitely would not. I give you that for sure.
Well, hey, we're at the number 1 song on the album. Wow, time flies when you're talking about Taylor Swift. Let's go through the ranking from the bottom to the top. The Moment I Knew, The Last Time, Sad, Beautiful, Tragic, All Too Well, Everything Has Changed, featuring the guy from yesterday, The Lucky One, I Almost Do, Stay, 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 Girl at Home, Holy Ground, Treacherous, Begin Again, Come Back Be Here, 22, State of Grace, Starlight, Red, We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together. But the best song on this album, according to this panel of experts, was only correctly predicted by one panelist, which is Julia. I Knew You Were Trouble ranks at the top of the ranking. Julia was the only one right about this song ranking at the top. What poetry. It rhymes, as George Lucas would say. Just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. What can you say? Except dubstep. Remember dubstep? Remember when dubstep felt like it was inescapable? It was going to be here forever, and now it's just non-existent?
Yeah.
2012 was sort of like right on the tail end of the trend when people, I think, were first starting to get sick of, to clarify, bro step. Because if you go to England and start talking about Skrillex and dubstep in the same sentence, people get mad at you. So she was going for some bro step influences, which was a choice in 2012 when everyone was already getting tired of it.
I mean, it was a successful choice because it led to like a #1 single and her becoming like a cultural icon even more than she was. Like, I think I read one music critic said like it was it was something they said like it was the beat drop heard around the world, which like is hyperbolic, but also like this is a significant sea change in her career where like before it, everything else was like, okay, it's, you know, pop, country, and maybe it's a little bit poppier than a lot of country, but it's still like pop country. This
does firmly establish like this is
a pop song.
Following the trends, pop music, yeah.
Right. And the fact that she was taking like such a bold swing and it wasn't a miss, because a lot of time when people do that like gigantic genre switch, the audience thinks it's weird, they reject it, it doesn't work. This was successful. It led to the GOAT meme. It's a very catchy song. Like, I remember like the friends of mine who were Swifties, we were talking about like doing a sketch associated with the song, but then we just never filmed it. But like we were coming up with ideas because we thought there was like clever jokes to make about that, like a guy like at a mixer where everyone has name tags and his name says Trouble. Hello, my name is Trouble. And just incorporating that into the song. We thought it was funnier than it was. Look, it was 2012. We weren't that funny. This was the pre-Snake Vomit days before we reached our comedy apex. But I mean, it's not my favorite song on the album, but I think it's an iconic, undeniable song. But in some ways, it's also like it's like the most dated of the songs because of that giant dubstep thing, where I feel like We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together and 22 are a bit more timeless than I Knew You Were Trouble. But I think this song was just such a cultural moment that, like, it ranking #1, I think, is fine. And I think it is a good song, even if, like, it's dated in the same way that, like, gated snare and, like, that 80s hair metal sound is dated. But, like, it's still good for what it is. Julia ranked at #1. She's right about this album.
It is worth noting that this ranked 1 by 14 points, which is exactly the distance Julia placed between it and We Are Never Getting Back Together.
Oh, man.
So it's like she did it on purpose. Sabotage.
Genius, Julia, member of Savatage and Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Mike, you gave this 17 points. How do you feel about this song winning the ranking?
Yeah, I mean, since I had it at #3, I can't be too upset about it at #1. It is one of the best songs on the album. Well, first of all, I think it's hilarious that Julia has it at #1. Not that she's wrong to rank it high, but she is just so unpredictable with what she likes and what she hates about Taylor Swift. It's like you said, she's an agent of chaos. That's so true. I personally disagree with you about this being more dated than We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together. And I guess for me, I recognize the dubstep element, but it doesn't to me, this it obviously is not a full on dubstep song, so I feel like that's still just a acceptable pop music touch in there or whatever. And I guess just personally for me, with We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together, like I'm just, let's say she continues to have this huge career, like I feel like a song like that is gonna sound a lot stranger coming from like a 65-year-old woman than I Knew You Were Trouble. To me, like I Knew You Were Trouble is more timeless. Like, people are always trouble, coming in and out of your life or whatever. Bad, some dude who's bad news or some chick who's bad news or whatever. Like, whereas just like I said, the cringiness or whatever. For me personally, and I'm not judging you, Alexis. Keep in mind, I was already like a guy well into my 20s when the song was a thing. So it's just so that's why I think this is not as dated, but cool that you do. I'm not like mad about that either. This song is just for me, again, it's not like an all-time favorite song or even one of my top 5 or 10 Taylor Swift songs, but it does have a lot of good nostalgia for me. I just remember this being a big song at the time. And even though I wasn't like, oh yeah, this is one of my current favorite pop hits, it was just very inescapable. And I feel like 2012 was a pretty good year for me in general. Like, just having some good times with friends. And I remember hearing this it was just like in the background of life a lot. So like even though I wasn't really paying attention to it, I still to this day when I hear it, it does take me back to one of the better years for me. And well, I was gonna say recent memory. I don't know if almost 30. Yeah, I don't know. Solid song.
So I don't know if we got Steve's.
Solid.
So I don't know if we got Steve's full thoughts on this, other than that it's not authentic.
Funny. You should have been watching these comments this whole time, Greg. They called you out on your eating disorder joke.
Yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't do the
Our last
cancel.
podcast, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. It's been great.
Where is this eating disorder joke? Getting called out. No one laughed.
I
Not
think
even
they
me.
just said, oh dear, that was a poor joke right after you made it.
Oh man. Oh, well, that's. I mean, it was a bad joke. I regret making that joke. There are limits to comedy, Tony Hinchcliffe. Anyway, Alexis, you gave this 13 points. What are your thoughts on this song?
Basically the same as We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together. It's just, I think it's a great song, great pop song. Honestly, I did rank We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together higher, but I think I was wrong in that. I think I Knew You Were Trouble should have been above that. And I was like debating back and forth whether I should like switch them, but I decided to just keep it the same. But this one is supposedly about Harry Styles, and we all know every song about Harry Styles is going to be a good song. We'll get to more Harry Styles stuff in the next album.
Ooh, and it looks like the stream health is poor all of a sudden for some reason. Don't know why. That boo earns. Oh, well, we're wrapping up anyway. So, this album, wrap-up thoughts. Alexis, how did you feel about your first time on the show and general thoughts on the album?
I feel like I'm not doing a great job at this. I need to have more thoughts before I come in here, because as soon as like I'm on here, my brain just like empties a little bit and I forget everything that I was supposed to say.
You took notes. You have notes.
I took notes, but they weren't really good notes. Honestly, I was just like, oh, this song is average. And that's about it. I'm like, every song. Like, I used to love this album when I was younger, because this is like the one I listened to the most. This one and like Speak Now in 1989 were like the times that I was like really listening to Taylor. But now that I like went back on it, it's not like my favorite album out of like all the albums she has. Definitely the later ones are like more my like style, I guess. So this has been interesting going back to this album and just realizing how many songs I'm just like, oh, I thought they were good back then, but now I'm just like, they're not my favorites, but some of them still hold up.
You are turning into Julia.
Oh no.
No.
By the end of this series.
Man, I've been called out so much in the chat for dropping the F-bomb so many times. I think just once it gets unleashed, it just flows out. The spirit of Julia possessed me, ruining the monetization on this episode. Steve, how are you walking away from Red? How are you feeling about this continued Taylor Swift journey?
Well, I mean, this ranking was very all over the place. Like, clearly, there's a lot of disagreement across the panel about which songs are worthwhile on this album. I think, you know, some of the ones that I particularly didn't like on this one, you guys ranked pretty high, and I will sleep fine at night knowing that you guys like some Taylor Swift songs that I don't like. It'll be all right. This one didn't feel as long as what was the second one where I just started skipping songs by the end because I couldn't take it anymore, and the album was so long.
Mike, how about you? How do you feel about this album and this Taylor Swift journey?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to say, Alexis, you're all good. Don't feel like you're not bringing anything to the panel. Like, just from my own experience, there's been ones where I've had like no thoughts coming in. I'm like, I'll just wing it, and then afterward, I'm like, okay, I was pretty sloppy and had nothing meaningful to say. And then today, I came in with actual notes, and I'm like, I'm prepared. And then at times today, I just felt like I was boringly reading off my notes. So basically, whatever you do, you'll probably never feel like it's good enough. But that's the magic of what we're doing, is we're just friends and people sharing thoughts about music. So no, you're all good. I'm really glad you're joining us. The album, I mean, you know, again, it's okay. It's probably my least favorite out of these first four we've done. I don't know. I just liked the youthful country pop charm of the first two, and then Speak Now was, you know, more of the rock style that I like. Probably the only real, I don't know. I mean, in terms of just real song that I hadn't heard before that I really enjoyed was the song Red. And I mean, I like Starlight, but again, I just think it's funny that it's Don't Trust Me by 303, which if you guys don't know, please go listen to that. You're going to know right away. You're like, Mike was right. And then, you know, obviously, like the big hits I already knew. But in terms of the ranking and any disagreements we had, like, you know, there's some where I'm just like, oh, that's funny. You know, Julia's insane, and Steve's wrong about this one, and Alexis is wrong about this one. But nothing so infuriating where I'm walking away. It's still no Rock and Roll Dreams Come Through. That is by far the biggest travesty that this panel has ever done on any of anything ever. So
And
nothing like
rough.
that where I'm gonna lose sleep at night.
That was pretty
What'd you
rough.
That one, I mean, that one is it's so bad that like
It's bad for good.
I just tried to like in my mind rewrite.
I think it's a good album, but I can also see like why she was starting to get bored with the country. And you know, I don't know where this ranks in the catalog now. Lower than Tortured Poets, but so is everything else. But yeah, good album. And now comes the part where I announce what we are doing for the next episode. Now, you folks at home might think, oh, it's going to be the vault tracks. But here's the thing. Christmas is coming up, and Taylor Swift. Next time, we are doing the Taylor Swift Holiday Collection, plus the song Christmas Tree Farm, because it's not on an album, and whatever, we'll just add it to the list. So get ready for some Taylor Swift holiday music, you guys. Who's excited?
Yay.
Steve's excited.
I mean, I am a big fan of Christmas. I am a Christmas baby. I don't know how much I'll enjoy a whole album of Taylor Swift Christmas, but
good news, it's like an EP.
Oh, okay, there we go.
I think it's like 6 songs, and then I think it'll be 7 when we add her one other Christmas song that people actually like. Spoiler alerts, people don't like this album very much, but we're doing it because timeliness. Merry Christmas, everybody. And before we go, plugs. Alexis, is there anything you want to plug? Any promo you want to do?
No.
Give us a music recommendation, Alexis.
I'm a basic white girl. You know, I listen to Taylor Swift, Olivia Rodrigo, Sabrina Carpenter. So everybody's already probably listening to them. So, you know.
So listen to more basic white girl music. Thank you, Wonder Bread. Steve, any music recommendations you have for us? You have basic white guy recommendations, like just like metal bands and weird
Middle
nerd
bands.
stuff.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Alexis, for joining us today. But yeah, my recommendations, as always, are listen to Greg Troyan the Fighters. Give us money on Patreon and stream us on all the platforms. Actually, I do have a music recommendation. Nick Lutzko came out with it's not really a new album, because most of his songs he does week by week on his YouTube channel, but he took all of his Halloween songs and put them together in a compilation that he just self-released this past week, which includes his trilogy of songs about Spirit Halloween that ended up actually being semi-official, to the point where you can go into a Spirit Halloween and hear his songs playing over the speakers, plus a bunch of songs about, like, mole people who live in his grandma's basement. They're good stuff. I recommend them.
And Mike, how about you? What do you want to recommend to the listeners at home?
Well, in the spirit of Taylor Swift, if you like country music but with pop and/or rock influences, then check out singer-songwriter guitarist Brian Durbin and his most recent release, which is a 80s rock version of the Brooks and Dunn classic My Maria.
Nice. And my recommendation, plugs. All right, you're on my channel. Please watch my Final Fantasy XI video. Hit like on it and just mute it. Let it play in the background. Let me get that sweet, sweet ad revenue. Please, please, please. All right.